Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Eerie International, episode 462 this week. My name is David from the United States.
I'm Andi from Germany.
And I'm Dave from the UK.
And we are reunited to close out our Peter Jackson series here on Eerie International. If you've been listening, you've been hopefully enjoying our three-part series of the early films of Peter Jackson in the horror category, at least. We're going to be talking about 1996's The Frighteners. If this is your first time listening, though, welcome to the podcast. We are a horror show. We talk about horror stuff, movies, whatever. There's a bunch of different formats. You can, check it out. We've got a long catalog of episodes. Feel free to go back and listen to everything or anything or pick and choose. Whatever you feel like is okay with us. It's a free show. And it's I don't know why I started to say it's a free country. Immediately make it confusing with three countries in play at the same time. What else? We're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a Gmail account. If you want to send us some longer form thoughts, eerieinternational@gmail.com. Blah, 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 blah. That's pretty much it, right? Yeah.
We do have an email this week. I don't know. We didn't talk about that before we started recording, but we do have an email.
I completely forgot. Do we? Oh, shit, we do from Elio. That's right.
Yes.
All right. Let me pull it up. I completely forgot. Literally before I was opening up all of my tabs and that I have, I open up the same ones typically every week when we record, and was like, all right, we read the Smart Otaku email. We're good to go there. All right, here it is. Good evening, my sweet, sweet boys. I am so far behind on episodes. I'm currently like a month or so behind on my podcast listening. The end of summer is not a podcast time for your favorite teacher. But I was perusing transcripts and saw that Knife Threat was mentioned on the +1 episode. So like any good self-obsessed person, I began to listen. I'm only 10 minutes in, but I'm so happy and thankful for Dave for checking out the new Knife Throat track. Our new album, Sad Blue Planet, comes out September 26th, and I am personally so excited to get it out. I've been writing these songs for about 2 years. Very cool. I'm at the start of my 11th year teaching, which is insane. I've been incredibly busy, but ample lesson planning time leads to ample podcast time. I just want to give the short answer on some horror stuff I got into this summer. Saw Summer. I've marathoned the series. And for anyone who's confused by that sentence, he titled the event The Saw Summer because it's the movie Saw, not a movie called Summer that he saw. I marathoned the series with the Dead Meat podcast. First time watch for all of them. Ridiculous, stupid fun. Weapons. I had the worst experience ever in a theater watching it, and it ruined the movie for me. It's all he wrote about that particular movie, so that's a bummer. Hopefully you're able to rewatch it and get a more of a blank slate. Together, the film Together, you see the shaft of Dave Franco's prosthetic hog. That's his full review. I think that's a perfect review. I was going to watch the movie anyway, but
double feature with Boogie Nights confirmed.
Yes. 28 years later, rocked. Clown in the Cornfield, must watch, an enjoyable, fun slasher. Throwback and just really, really good. Great watch, throwback to 2000s slashers. The Conjuring, I'm assuming he's talking about the new one, was fine. It was sort of the greatest hits replayed, but just not as good as the original. +1 was fun. So many boobs. Were there? I don't even remember that. Anyway, I'm going to catch up on the Peter Jackson movies so I can listen to it within a week or two. You guys are the best. Keep being great, Elio. He's got his phone number
David,
here. I'm going to read that out real quick.
On our +1 episode, you were the one that remembered the stupendous tits line from the Friday the 13th remake because Dave
I remembered
talked about
the line.
Yeah, and I wasn't done yet because Dave brought up the boobs in the movie +1. So there were enough naked ladies in that.
I don't even remember who was. Oh, that's right. Okay, I got it now. Man, I didn't like that movie. Let's not talk about it again. But now I remember why. Now I remember the scene. All right, cool. Elliot, as always, thank you for writing in. Please continue to do so when you're able to. We know you're busy, and I I'm impressed that you're able to get as much watching and listening and stuff done as you are being a teacher, because I know that that's a crazy job. So great to hear from you as always.
And also, thank you for mentioning the release date of the album, because that was going to be a question I was going to bring up if
absolutely.
it wasn't mentioned, because I know
I already
that
closed the tab, but I think I said September 26th.
Yep, September.
Okay.
20-something. That's it.
I think it's the 26th.
I was just like,
26th.
late September, I'm going to be able to listen to the rest of this album.
26th would be a Tuesday, which is usually the like album release date or day of the week in America, or historically, I think. So that probably is right.
Good stuff.
We're going to
Along
say
with
that
comic books.
is. It's probably not, and we're pitching everybody on the wrong
Music
date.
and comic books on the Tuesday.
Yeah. Yep,
Awesome.
even though it used to be Wednesday.
Was it Wednesday?
For comics, it
Tuesday.
was forever, yeah. But now I think there's multiple ones that are different because let's talk about comic book distribution centers and how they've changed ever since Diamond has lost the monopoly hold they've had on the comic book industry. That's what the show's about.
Pull up a
all right,
chair.
let's get into what we've talked about this week, or what we watched rather. And enjoyed this week. I'll kick us off. I have one thing. I didn't get into a whole lot. Well, no. I take it back. I have two things because I keep fucking forgetting to talk about Alien Earth. Dave, you've watched some of this too, right?
Yes, and I watched more yesterday, so I'm up to date.
Oh, you're all the way up to date. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're farther than me. I'm only. I've watched the first. I want to say 4 episodes. It's either 3 or 4, or I'm like halfway through episode 4, like in between. And I think that there's 6 episodes out now.
There are, yeah.
Okay, so I'm not up to date. I know that I haven't had a lot of stuff spoiled for me in later episodes. I do know that episode 5 is the like alien mini movie, like flashback episode to, or at least that's how I've heard it described.
Yeah.
To what happened on the ship that crash lands at the beginning of the series in the city. So I'm excited for that. But overall thoughts, I'm pretty into the show, Dave. I don't know how you are feeling about it, but I think it's pretty great.
Love it.
Yeah,
absolutely love
I think it's awesome. It's interesting. It's in all of the ways that I think it's important that it stays consistent with the franchise, like the tone and the vibe and everything. I think that it is. But then also, I've been surprised. And again, you've watched more than me, so I'm sure there's more nuance and twists and stuff to this I haven't seen play out yet. But even in just the first few episodes, I've been surprised at how bold they've been with some of the lore stuff. Not in the way that you and I talked or mentioned a few weeks ago, where it's like, oh, well, we have to connect every single little dot to these other movies. Not that kind of shit, but more just new stuff. So there's obviously like the show plays a huge part, or a big part of the show is the division of types of people and what those people are defined as, because there are synthetics, there are like hybrid people, there are cyborgs. I mean, there's like one cyborg and like one synthetic. Like it's not like there's tons of them everywhere, but and then there's these like hybrid kids, which are basically real
Fresh
people
out the oven
that have been transferred human consciousness into a synthetic body. So none of it feels out of place to me. It all works really well, I think, and like it clicks. It like we're also exploring a time that we've always heard Wayland Yutani, we've always heard of these corporations, but we're seeing a lot of the politics that go on and play into that. I thought the horror in it is really good. It's surprisingly violent. There's one xenomorph kill in episode 2, I think, that is one of the most violent in probably the franchise that I've ever seen. So like they're not skimping away from watering it down for TV or anything like that. I don't know. I'm curious on your take on it, Dave, other than, I mean, you said you liked it overall, but I'm really into it.
It's difficult to go into what I've really been enjoying about it without spoiling later episodes, so I have to be careful with how I word it. So
I mean, even me, like, I don't want to spoil, like, in the first
I don't want to
few,
spoil it
it's
for
like,
you or anyone.
well, no, I mean, like, I've held back from saying stuff because even in the first few episodes, there's cool shit that I want people to. So I
sure.
totally get that.
I think I've seen a lot of discourse on Blue Sky, which I've completely agreed with, which is this is my favourite show of recent times about people making the dumbest decisions, and in a worst case scenario, in a worst case scenario position. the whole concept of the hybrid, synthetics with human consciousness is a really interesting take, and they go into some very interesting directions with it in terms of trauma and how young minds are susceptible to being affected by trauma in very strange ways, and how the interaction of that, along with having now fully adult bodies, is really fucking with them. Yeah. There is a slight problem that I have with the fact that they say very early on about how, well, you're in a synthetic body, so we have we've set them up so that we can give you certain amounts of different types of chemicals so that they'll kind of enhance your feelings, but essentially you're not going to feel the same way that you did as a human. And
they're trying to replicate emotional growth, not emotional growth, but not exactly replicate puberty. They're trying to put in signals. Yeah, because I guess we kind of glossed over it. There's a group of kids in the movie who, the synthetic hybrid people, are all kids that for the most part were terminally ill. And so they're in adult bodies now and they're fine, but the bodies are synthetic. So they can't eat or feel, they don't have to go to the bathroom. There's all these things now, but they're from the ages of, I don't know, probably 9 to 13 or something.
13
when you see
14,
them.
Yeah,
they're young. So that was, I picked up on that too. Where he talks about as you grow older, there are things that we're going to mimic in these bodies to try to get to. I don't even know if they tell them. It might just be them talking.
Well, they mention it to Wendy in particular because she's kind of our window character into this new type of life. But I think my problem was that later on, there's a character who is dealing with trauma in a very real way, and I'm just why can't you just turn down her fear response to kind of, you know what I mean? Maybe I misunderstood what they were talking about when it was, about hormones and kind of essentially putting them through puberty and stuff.
In that brain.
Yeah. And they come up with a solution for it later on, which I won't go into because it may become a key part of the show, but also it's just a big kind of moral grey area with the type of new life that they're dealing with here. Yeah. But yeah, overall, I've really enjoyed it. There's a lot of very good performances happening in the show. I'm loving the fact that we don't just have xenomorphs. We're also dealing with 4 other types of life, which have come more into play. I have a favorite alien, and it's not the xenomorph. Just going to say that.
There's a lot of cool ones, man. That's one thing I like about it, too.
Yeah. This is not... I'm not going to say it in a spoilerish way, but people that have seen it will know exactly what I'm talking about. There is one alien species in particular, that is just way ahead of everyone else in terms of my enjoyment of them. And I think it's because they're not just the typical evil alien out to suck your blood or melt your face. There's a little bit of nuance in there, especially it starts up in episode 5 is when you really start to notice this for this specific character. And I'm just are all of the aliens really just bad, or is there a bit more nuance being introduced into the idea that they're all kind of killer creatures that for the most part will just try to end your life and use you as a meat puppet or whatever.
That's definitely one of my favorite things they added into the show was the introduction of all these other. Basically the premise of the show in a nutshell is that a Weyland-Yutani sort of, well, no, not even Weyland-Yutani. It's just
it is.
It's just Yutani, right?
Yeah, no, it's a Weyland-Yutani. They've got the WY.
Yutani. Yeah, when he talks to her. That's what I was thinking. It wasn't, but yeah, you're right. It was out. I don't know the specifics if it was sent to capture stuff. There's things I don't know, but it's at the beginning of the series. It is coming back to Earth, and it has all of these alien specimens, including a xenomorph. The xenomorph has clearly got out. It's killing everybody. The ship crash lands in the middle of a city, and then the different corporations involved in the city are then kind of multiple people have different goals and aims on the show of what they're trying to accomplish with this event, but one of the big things is corporations trying to say, oh, okay, well, they have all this alien research stuff that landed in our city. We can go grab it now, and we can study it and trying to take it for themselves. So with that comes there's xenomorph stuff, so you have the face huggers and the eggs and all that shit, but then you also have, like Dave said, these other alien creatures, which it wasn't until we've been talking about it just now that it dawned on me, like, yeah, this is kind of a stroke of genius in some ways. You could argue that there were more elegant ways of solving this particular issue, but if it wouldn't have had this, I can see so clearly how this show probably would have played out, which would have been human drama and then a little bit of a xenomorph in every episode.
Yeah.
Or maybe every other episode, because they are expensive and whatever, like that. Maybe it's harder to pull off. But with this, they're able to inject a lot more variety, a lot more different forms of threats, interesting sorts of things. And it also just makes sense, because the idea that we're in this world that we do see other alien species every once in a while, but it's never like usually a big focus. It's always very xenomorph specific or very predator specific. So yeah, I love that too. And it brings in all these like fun questions of like, what is this thing's life cycle like, and why is it doing this particular thing? What's going to happen now? And
just expands the universe in a really fun way, where suddenly we
Totally.
know that this is a universe where there are like these two apex predator species in the xenomorph and the Yautja, or the predators. And now we're introducing like 4 more who are potentially just as dangerous if you're not prepared for them, but in different ways. And, you know, it mirrors a lot of what we see on our planet, where you've got, you know, you could be killed by a lion, or you could be killed by a black widow spider. They are completely different ends of the spectrum in all aspects: size, species, number of legs, whether or not you'll find them in the African outback.
Literally don't know anything about any of them. They're just like, life is like crew expendable, to quote the show and the franchise. Like so part of the thing that you said at the top of the discussion about like watching people make stupid decisions or whatever. Yeah. Like that part of it is a big part of it, I think, is that it's not that you're like frustrated with poor writing or like poor and I don't think that's what you were saying.
Oh no,
but,
not
like,
at all.
A big part of the show is just like, you know, oh, okay, well, they don't go after humans, so all the synthetics need to work on it, and we'll just keep them in here. Everything will be fine. And that's in like episode 2. And you're like, oh, okay.
Well, that's the thing. It's partly that people are just making dumb decisions, but also like when you actually look at the people that are making those decisions, you're talking about children in adult bodies. You're talking about a probably 20-year-old
child.
a 20-year-old trillionaire who owns his own country and city.
Yeah. Literally named Boy.
Yeah. You've got Timothy Oliphant, who is doing Timothy Oliphant things, but in the best ways.
Another stroke of genius for me was making him a synthetic.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I was, when I first saw the like promotional whatever still of him, his fucking hair and eyebrows, I was like, okay, I like Timothy Oliphant. Like, I like him fine. Like, he's good. But when I saw that, I didn't roll my eyes, but I was just kind of like, all right, I guess
the first episode took me time to, yeah,
I wasn't sure at
It's
first,
a
and
look.
I can't remember if they like not hide the fact that he's an android, but like they don't mention it necessarily.
You discover
right away.
it naturally through conversation. As
Yeah.
I think it's when he starts interacting more with Wendy.
Yeah, I think you're right, because it's not
also,
like a reveal, but they also
they
don't
just
like introduce him that way.
Yeah,
either.
they drop little breadcrumbs here or there, and then someone just outright talks about him being a synthetic and not being able to. It might even be himself that says this, that he doesn't feel emotion. And that's like the confirmation.
I think that was when I picked up on it, was they were talking about the kids, and he was like, why are we talking about them like they're children or like they're human? He's like, they're not human anymore. Like this. And that was a perspective where I was like, is this motherfucker synthetic? Like my voice went up 18 octaves. But yeah, as a synthetic with that hair and that look, and then now like I'm very into his character in the first few episodes. So
yeah, he started to spike my curiosity meter in terms of like characters with ulterior motives. Probably
because, alien staple.
Well, he's a synthetic, so you can't trust him. That's literally what Alien has taught us over the years. They tried to rescue things with Bishop.
Except for Bishop,
yeah. But still, like, I think that the chances are in the Alien universe, if you're talking to a synthetic, they're probably a psychopath.
Or just like...
Or just have
designed to, obey. And
I wonder if there are some ulterior motives with him. I've seen little flashes here or there where I'm like, I'm not sure that you would do that if you were just like a subservient. There was an interaction between him and the boy. I don't.
Cavalier.
Yeah, I Cavalier. That's his name. Yeah, I wonder which Peter Pan character. I reckon he's going to be Hook. You know, like everyone else is getting a fucking name. I think he's Captain Hook. He's either that or James Darling, but I genuinely I don't think that he fits that mold. So there's a conversation between those two, and there's some needle between them, and I think the point where I was like, not all is rosy in this particular garden, was when Cavalier talks about how he wants to have a conversation with someone who's his intellectual equal, and then just completely dismisses Oliphant's character being, well, you're a synthetic, you don't count. And it's like, he could break your neck right now. Like, it's only programming stopping it. I wouldn't treat him like that. In the same way that I'm polite to my Google assistant and my Amazon assistant. I nearly named her, and she'd start listening to me. She's already listening to me. Let's not kid ourselves. Just in case the AI revolution comes, I want to be on the side of, well, this one said please and thank you, so maybe we won't kill him so painfully. I have that same feeling where it comes to like Oliphant's character and everyone. It's like Kilsh or Clish or something like that is his name. I can't remember exactly, but he's been great so far. Just Kirsch, maybe,
Kirsch,
very understated performance. Like it people probably think it's really easy to play a robot with like no emotions or whatsoever, but like Brent Spiner did that shit for years and did it at such a high level that I think he just convinced everybody that it was an easy job to do. There's some nuance in that performance, bearing in mind that he technically is supposed to be a character that doesn't show him have emotion, but I wonder if he might actually have some. That just, it boggles my mind. He does such a good job in that role. It's such a restrictive role, but at the same time a role that gives you great freedom, and it's finding that place in amongst it all. Look at me talking like I'm in the fucking actor's studio. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
I know what you mean. I think the writing too, that piece specifically helps, because we typically have only seen synthetics in the films when they've been like part of the crew that's there to support, and there's maybe friction or animosity, like even in Alien Resurrection when they clone and fucking resurrect Ripley 1,000 years later. She distrusts Call, Winona Ryder's android, because of the past stuff or whatever. So having it be not only a character who has more complexity, but then also is like in a leadership capacity, like he's responsible and like he's a mentor to Wendy, like There's all kinds of things. I'm going to stop talking about it now because I've talked about it way too much. But it's well, no, I mean not you, but just I could just talk about it forever though. It's such a good show so far, and I'm really into it. The only other thing I was going to quickly mention, I read a novella this week called Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones, writer that we have discussed on the show at least twice. We did Mapping the Interior and The Only Good Indians. I liked this quite a bit. It was good. It came out in 2020. Very quickly, I'm going to read the synopsis that's on the back of the book, and you'll see why in a second. All right, so here's Night of the Mannequins. We thought we'd play a fun prank on her, and now most of us are dead. One last laugh for the summer as it winds down. One last prank just to scare a friend. Bringing a mannequin into a theater is just some harmless fun, right? Until it wakes up, until it starts killing. Luckily, Sawyer has a plan. He'll be a hero. He'll save everyone to the best of his ability. He'll do whatever he needs to so he can save the day. That's the thing about heroes. Sometimes you have to become a monster first. So the reason I'm reading that is because the book is it's a slasher book. I think a lot of people, if you don't read the entire synopsis, you're going to think, oh shit, this is which is what I thought. This is a wild, mannequins coming to life kind of fun, punchy novella. And I'm not gonna, do any massive spoilers here, but I think that synopsis is very intentional. It is a book about it's a slasher story, basically. It's a kid who you are first person perspective, and you are not sure kind of throughout, but then there are lines that are crossed at different points. Is this going on? Like, is this mannequin coming to life, or is this kid losing his mind and then potentially killing innocent people? So I only mention all that just because people going into it thinking it's going to be this like creature feature kind of wacky. It's not that, but it is great. I really did enjoy it. And it is a short, kind of like, it's 132 pages. So get through it pretty quick. And I won't go into more spoilers from there, but if you're into slashery stuff, I Am Not a Serial Killer, that movie and book, that we've brought up on the show in the past, it kind of reminded me of that in some ways, like a young person kind of grappling with some of these things and these feelings or whatever. But in this particular instance, the backdrop is a mannequin come to life prank, maybe. So anyway, it's good. I liked it. I definitely recommend it. Just kind of go into it knowing what to expect. And that's it for me this week. So let me throw it over to you, Dave. Anything spooky and fun?
Well, apart from what we've already talked about, not particularly. There was one thing which Andi actually sent a link to us this morning regarding an episode of a show on NHK World where they talk to Kazuhiro Otomo about Domu, which we talked about on this show many years ago, but probably the episode isn't available right now. I'll have to see if I can dig it out of the archives if it still exists. It should do. And it had just been given a subtitle treatment, so I would finally be able to watch it and understand it, as would you, David. So I sat down and managed to watch the first half before things got in the way and I was unable to finish it. But so far, very much enjoying it. It's really interesting to see. This show is hosted by Naoki Urasawa, and who is also a manga artist. And it was really interesting to just see two people from the industry just talking and geeking out over the process of how certain images were drawn. There's one in particular where Cho is revealed to be possibly the person responsible for the death at the opening of the book, and he's just kind of hovering in midair with a bunch of crap hanging around his neck, and he's got like a winged hat on and a gun hanging from a rope. And the amount of stuff they were able to take from that one image to talk about was absolutely mind-boggling. The one that I primarily kind of focused in on was the fact that, and I didn't understand what this was until they started to explain it through their conversation. Urasawa says, can we just zoom in on that image? So they zoom in on all of the chains and stuff that's hanging around Cho's neck. And he says, there's no white in there at all. And I'm like, what are you talking about? There's loads of white. Like, there's white paper all over the fucking place. But what he meant was there was no correction fluid used to touch up the image after the fact. The fact that entire image was drawn with no correction fluid needed whatsoever. It's just absolutely stunning. Like, I can't exactly bring up the image to show our listeners, but if you look for Domu, if you Google for Domu, it's probably one of the images that will come up from a search. And what I really liked was Otomo basically saying, well, this is an offering to the gods. I couldn't use correction fluid because that would basically invalidate the offering. And I was just like, holy shit. And then they talk about like the importance of the white background and how it is used to draw attention to the thing that is on the page. And then Otomo says, yes, and sometimes I'm lazy. I don't want to draw backgrounds. I love the fact that I feel like this is the kind of conversation that you only get between two people that know each other well, who work in the same industry, and they can be honest with each other. Like, if you just had, like, I don't know, the Chris Van Vliet of manga doing this interview, I don't know that you would get this level of openness from Otomo. And then also the fact that I'm watching an interview between the man that wrote and drew Monster, which I finished this week, by the way. I'll get onto that in a second. And the man who drew and wrote Akira and Domu and like so many other things which I'm just learning about, like Fireball, which they showed one still image of that shit, and I'm like, I need to find this immediately. Just amazing, like, oh, holy shit, like Terminator stuff before Terminator was a thing. Yeah, so it's a really interesting documentary. I will post the link in the description of today's episode for everyone else to watch. It is only available until the end of September, though, so make sure that you get your skates on and watch this as soon as you can, everybody. And then the last thing to talk about is Monster, as I mentioned. I finished it this week, and guys, seriously, I would put it in the kind of horror adjacent position, like realm, because it's not horror, but the concepts and the subjects that they talk about and they cover during this show, 74 episodes, mind you, are just like pretty hard at times to get through. Like, there's some, like, a lot of real world shit going on in there. Again, for anyone that isn't aware of what Monster is, I would call it like a crime drama. It's definitely got some psychological thriller aspects to it as well. It's set in 1980s Europe, primarily in Germany and Czechoslovakia. And so if you've got an interest in European history from that era, if you've got an interest in thrillers, you're already listening to this show, so I know you like horror, so there's a good chance that you're going to enjoy some of the stuff that this show puts down. It's a very, very well crafted anime adaptation of what I am led to believe, and David, you've read a fair bit of Monster, is a very good manga. So I would recommend to check that out. And also, I'm led to believe by the denizens of the Discord chat over on Generation Animation that there is actually a 4K release coming, if not a Blu-ray release, and that is going to, for the first time ever, have an English dub on it.
Oh, nice.
So I'm probably going to see if I can pick up a copy of that, either a US copy that I'll import, or more likely, given the horrendous rates that have been put on imports and exports out of America, I will probably be hoping for a European release, and I would hope that there's a good chance of it, but I'll have to keep an eye out. But yeah, really good show. I really enjoyed it. It's one of those shows that you can put on and watch one or two episodes if you just want something to watch at night, or if you're like me, you can invent a hole in the space-time continuum and watch like 10 episodes in a day. Yeah, it's great. Really, really well done. And just very, very dark and potentially depressing, but also just like a wonderfully told story. And the way that everything knits together, all of these characters keep just randomly crossing paths, and I'm like, Europe's a big fucking place, guys. I don't think that was likely to happen. But I didn't mind it, because I was just like, hey, I get to see this character again. And I shit you not, like, we got to episode like 66, 67, I think, and we'd said goodbye to a side character who was like an awesome character, absolutely loved him, and had like a really intriguing and quite sad backstory. And I'm not mentioning his name on purpose, because I want people to be able to enjoy the show if they go and watch it off of a recommendation. And then I was like, okay, well, he's leaving to do whatever, and he's got no reason to cross paths with anyone again. And then literally like a few episodes from the end, he turns up, and I was like, I had the biggest shit-eating grin on my face that you've ever seen. Honestly, like, I was like, oh man, I didn't realize that I would miss that character as much as I actually do. Fuck yeah, he's back. Fuck yeah. So yeah, just the way that the show and the mangaka is able to write and show you and introduce you to characters in such a way that you immediately feel like they're your best friend and you want to see them in every episode ever. It's an underrated ability, because there's been plenty of shows where a character has been introduced and I've not given a shit, and it turns out that they are a regular character going forward, and I'm like, okay, great,
yeah,
show me more of the others. And then you've got this, and it's like, this guy isn't even introduced until like the back half of the show, and then he's in like maybe half a dozen episodes, and it feels like it's kind of a side story kind of thing. And then he's gone, and I'm like, oh, well, that was cool, and I wish him good luck because I really loved him as a character. And then he turns back up, and I'm like, okay, get out the party poppers. We're having a good old time now. This is great. So Monster is an absolute recommendation from me. It's 74 episodes well spent watching something which just doesn't pull its punches and really concentrates on psychological drama, and also there's like memory loss stuff going on there as well, and potential genetic experimentation, but on a slightly lesser level than Men in Lab Coats, like using pipettes to drop stuff into. Like this is more eugenics. It's like, you know, we'll get a bunch of men and women who have the characteristics we like, and we'll just have them fuck. That it's that kind of genetic engineering. It's like eugenics. So. But we're talking about 1980s Europe, which is not that far removed from, you know, it was still an era where there were men floating around. Most of them had fled to Argentina, but there were a few people that were floating around that were involved in some really dodgy shit off the back of the Second World War. And it's kind of interesting to see kind of in an era where the Iron Curtain hadn't quite dropped. And so, or it had just dropped, so you had like defections and things going on, and there was still like open hostility between certain people and other countries. And yeah, it's a really fascinating show to watch, man, especially if you remember that era of European history. I barely remember it. Like, I remember the day that the Iron Curtain fell, and everyone was like celebrating, and I was like, what's an Iron Curtain? And then I went and I reread the first issue of Transformers that I had, and I was like, yeah, that'll do. So yeah, there you go. That's everything this week. Sorry, that was a bit of a ramble. Andy, save us from my rambling prose.
I will ramble about Peter Jackson and Fantasy Film Fest. This is I took in a bunch of Peter Jackson stuff this week. Are you guys aware of the podcast called Screen Drafts?
I don't think so. Did you say screen or scream?
SCREEN. Like
screen, okay.
Screen Draft.
No, I don't think so.
So this is a podcast that's been going for years. I listen to them on and off sometimes when I'm interested in a specific episode. They do lists of either filmographies of a certain director or of a certain genre or a sub-genre, in the way that there is
like a draft. Never mind. I know it. I have watched this. Yeah, sorry. I just realized what it is.
Yeah. So two contestants. They each make a list. They rank movies and then go back and forth in putting a movie on the list. And if the other contestant isn't happy with where a movie is placed, they can take a veto, but only once. And in the end, there is a quote-unquote definitive list, best of lists ranked from 1 through however many movies they do about this specific topic. Not too long ago, Patrick Williams was on an episode about action comedies, for example. And somewhat recently, they did an episode on Peter Jackson's filmography. This coincided with the release of Joe Begas' latest movie, Jimmy and Sticks. So this was kind of Jimmy and Sticks themed, in the sense that the guest commissioner was Graham Skipper, who is in many of Joe Begas' movies. And the two people that actually made the list were one, Matt Mercer, who is
I know him,
who is I don't know if he's Jimmy or Stiggs, but Joe Begos is one of the lead characters, and Matt Mercer is one of the lead characters.
But not
and
the same
other,
Matt Mercer, right? That Dave is thinking of?
I think it's the guy.
I thought we looked this. I'm not joking. This sounds so specific. I thought we looked this up on a train in Germany. When I was there, I don't know. When I was there, we had this exact same thing. You were telling me about Jimmy and Stiggs. I'd never heard of it, and then you said Matt Mercer, and I was like, Matt Mercer's in it? And we looked it up, and it's a different Matt Mercer. I'm 99% sure.
Okay, I have not seen the movie, and the
yeah,
podcast
you're right.
was audio only, so.
Yeah, I think it's
it is a different.
Anyway, sorry.
It's a different Matt Mercer. Wow. Okay, I didn't know that happened in Hollywood. I thought everyone had to have a different name.
But the other guy is Josh Miller, the co-host on the Best Movies Never Made podcast, and screenwriter of the Sonic the Hedgehog movies and the Violent Nights or Violent Night movie, and he's a voice in Jimmy and Stiggs. So anyway, so yeah, they listed they made a list of 11 features that Peter Jackson directed. So they kind of went through his whole filmography with the caveat that because there is a draft coming up where they rank all the Middle-earth movies, they said in this draft you can only pick one Middle-earth movie.
out of the 6.
Yeah, exactly. So the question is only which of the 6 goes on the list, and yeah, and they also ranked the documentaries were involved and all the feature films. I think it was 11 films that they ranked. Very fun episode. And then of course they talk in depth about the movies. All 4 people on the podcast. I so far all the episodes that I've listened to, I really enjoyed. And sometimes there's a bit of a scandal, which was really fun with the Patrick Willems episode recently, because years ago there was a draft of John Carpenter's filmography. Joe Lynch was on that episode, and maybe Drew McWeeny, something like that was the other guy. And it was a live episode in front of a crowd at a cinema, and the movie that was placed first would then be shown at that cinema to the whole crowd. And this episode has gotten infamous because they drafted themselves into such a corner that the thing was not on the list.
Oh man,
it did not make the. I thought it was probably a top 7 or so. So the thing did not make the list, and Big Trouble in Little China placed first.
Wow,
and
great
and
movie, but that's a surprise.
and that's an episode that they often bring up when they talk about how things can go wrong in a way. And on the Patrick Willems episode about action comedies, they reference that episode and that moment when the thing did not get on the list. And then Patrick Willems does not have the last draft, so he picks number 2, and leading up to number 1, he always mentions, well, there's still one person that we do not have on the list, and that person must be on the list. I can only hope that the other guy will do the right thing. I
no
cannot
pressure.
Pick them, so, and everyone who listens to the episode knows there is no Jackie Chan movie on the list yet. There's no Jackie Chan movie on the list yet. And then I don't remember who the other guy was. He picked what was the name? That John Cusack gangster high school reunion.
Oh, Gross Point Blank.
Yeah.
Gross Point Blank.
An action comedy. The classic action comedy.
But Willems couldn't veto it anymore, so there's no Jackie Chan on the best action comedy list, and Gross Point Blank is the best action comedy.
Absolutely scandalous.
So they mentioned the John Carpenter thing on the episode, and then they did the same thing for their own list. So anyway, I went on to watch Forgotten Silver, the mockumentary that Peter Jackson made in the mid-90s for New Zealand TV. Are you aware of this program?
Yes. Well, I'm aware of the movie. I almost texted you about this because this is another one of the Peter Jackson movies I haven't seen, and I think when I was younger, I always assumed it would be too specific for me to maybe appreciate or enjoy. When I was younger, at least, because I'm sure you're about to describe the premise.
Premise is on New Zealand TV they had this time slot of an hour where different people made like 1 hour dramas, and for some reason somehow Peter Jackson and his partners came into contact with the TV network, and they had an idea that they thought they could fit into this 60-hour slot. Mind you, this is New Zealand in the mid-90s. And Peter Jackson and his partner, whose name I'm blanking on,
Costa Boats.
Costa Boats.
Costa, yeah.
They made this mockumentary about Colin McKenzie, one of the earliest filmmakers in history, a New Zealand native that in 1900 made his own cameras and film stock, and made his first movies and made the first feature-length movie, but was completely forgotten and no one had seen these things. But a neighbor of the Jackson family was the widow to Colin McKenzie, and in her shed she had these film rolls, and she asked Peter Jackson to take a look at this stuff. So all these films were rediscovered and restored, and so this 60-hour mockumentary goes through the whole life of Colin McKenzie and his brother, his first wife, his second wife, and how he made these movies. And then the war happened, and he went away for a while, and then he came back, and now they restored this big epic about Salome that he had made, and they're showing it at in New Zealand, this big world premiere. And interspersed through all these moments, you have like legitimate movie people like Sam Neill and Leonard Maltin and Harvey Weinstein and the New Zealand film archivist who is a real guy. I'll talk about this discovery of this one of the earliest filmmaker that we now have to rank amongst people like D.W. Griffith and Lumiere and Méliès and all these people. And this is a completely dryly presented documentary style fake thing in the mid-90s in New Zealand, just on TV in a slot where people knew this is a 60-hour slot where like proper drama things and serious things get presented. So for a night, many people in New Zealand felt a sense of pride for now having this new cinematic hero, because New Zealand did not have a film industry.
I know where this is going.
And now they have this guy, and then they find out this is all a hoax, and there are many angry letters were sent to the TV station. How could you do this to us? Why are you fooling us with this with this silly thing? And so I had always heard about this. I knew this existed. I had never seen it. And this week I watched it, and it's definitely very interesting. It's not played for comedy. That's the thing. So if you're not really interested in the thing that Peter Jackson made, it's not funny or anything. So because that's not what it was supposed to be. If you're not interested in the filmography of Peter Jackson, there's probably not much for you in there, I would assume. I then found out after watching it that Costa Boats made 5 years later made a short documentary about the making of Forgotten Silver. It's 20 minutes. So that gives a bit more context to the thing. So I would recommend watching both probably.
Nice.
And so it was mostly to fill my gaps in the Peter Jackson filmography. And after listening to the Screen Drafts podcast, where they also talk a lot about the Forgotten Silver, I thought, well, I should take the opportunity and finally watch it. And
so have you? Sorry, real quick before you move away from that, have you now seen all of Peter Jackson's filmography? Do you have any gaps left?
I have not seen the lovely thing. What's it called?
The Lovely Bones. Okay.
Yeah, is it Lovely Bones? Yeah, okay.
Not a great
I have
movie,
not seen that
that's
one.
fine.
Yeah, that's what I hear. And as I mentioned last week, I I mentioned that I would also watch Heavenly Creatures or rewatch Heavenly Creatures, and I did that. Again, I had seen this movie a long time ago. I remembered very little about it. It has way more fantasy elements to it than I remembered. And of course, the first time that I saw it, I knew neither Melanie Linsky nor Kate Winslet. So seeing them now when they were just teenagers, like 18 years old when they made this movie, was very interesting. And only a few years ago, I learned more context to the movie that you might be aware of. So the story is, for anyone who doesn't know, the movie is based on a real event from the 1950s in New Zealand, and it's based on diary entries where two teenage girls, they befriend each other. One is originally from England. Their family moves to New Zealand, I believe, like Christchurch, and she befriends this local girl, and they get enwrapped in this fantasy world that they are building in their heads, and people around them think that this relationship is a little unhealthy, and at some point, the British girl is supposed to move away again, and the girls do not want to be separated, so they kill one of the mothers. They plan and kill just with a brick over the head. Kill the mother of the New Zealand girl. Both girls go to prison for 5 years, and then after they're released, the British girl moves away immediately, and they never see each other again. And that's where the movie ends. So they're released in 1959. The movie comes out in 1995, I believe. So 40 years after the murder. And when the movie comes out, people find out that the girl that moved away, the British girl, is now under the name Anne Perry, a very successful novelist. 40 years after the events, suddenly this woman who has been during her lifetime has released over 100 novels. Suddenly gets confronted with her past from 40 years ago that she obviously has left behind totally. She changed her name, began a new life, started writing in the 60s, had her first novel released in 1979. She died now a couple of years ago in 2023. As I said, wrote over 100 books in her lifetime and became a successful novelist under the name Anne Perry. And yeah, because of the Peter Jackson movie, suddenly she was confronted again with that past that nobody knew about her.
It's fucking crazy. How did I never knew this? I don't know.
I only learned about that a few years ago. Yeah, for the longest time, I did not know about it either.
Yeah, Anne Perry is. I don't know how familiar you guys are. Well, I mean, obviously, Andi, you knew about this, but Dave, I don't know if you know that name. I've never read any of her books, but massive name. And, it's mysteries, right? I think like detective books.
Yeah. She has, like detective series and a lot of other things. With 100 books, you branch out a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's mostly known for like detective mysteries, I believe.
Like a name that's so big that cannot name a single one of her books, characters, can basically only barely remember the genre. I knew her name instantly. Like that's how big. Like I've seen her name on so many covers my whole life. Like that is insane. I had no idea. That's so crazy.
Yeah, she's the Kate Winslet character. That's her. Yeah, Julia.
I wonder if Austin knows this. I'm going to call Austin. I'm going to do a very strange millennial thing and call Austin on the phone when we're done here instead of texting him to get his reaction. That's crazy. Cool. I want to see Heavenly Creatures really badly. I've heard it's a great movie, but I've still never seen it.
The thing with Heavenly Creatures is if you haven't seen it, you know that it is this kind of a outlier in Peter Jackson's early filmography because it's this serious topic based on a real event. But when you watch it, there's so many moments, and Bianca said that today too, when she said what he does with the camera, it's still just Peter Jackson and miniature photography and as I said, so many fantasy elements. Like they make these they they write a novel. They have this whole world mapped out, this fantasy chivalry kind of world with kings and queens and stuff like that, and they make clay models of their characters. And there's many big scenes in the movie where these clay characters are alive, where Kate Winslet and Melanie Linsky interact with these clay characters in this castle. And so it goes way more fantasy than you'd expect.
That's crazy.
So that's the Peter Jackson intake of the week. Now, currently, Fantasy Film Fest is going on in Nuremberg again. So far, I've seen 2 movies. One is the Toxic Avenger remake that I will not talk about because we were planning on doing an episode on it. So that's maybe coming up. The other movie that I so far saw was a movie called Man Finds Tape. The story is in the title. It's... So, 2 filmmakers, Paul Gandersman and Peter Hall. I think this is the first movie they directed. They were involved as writers and producers on other things. This anthology movie, Scare Package, for example. They're out of Austin, Texas. So, Austin film scene. In the end credits, I learned that C. Robert Cargill and his wife are credited as producers on the movie.
Wow.
Obviously, they live in Austin, Texas. They probably, I don't know, contributed $1,000 to the movie or whatever. I don't know. I don't think they were creatively involved. But Dave Lawson, Justin Benson, and Aaron Moorhead are the actual producers on the movie.
Ooh.
And that's how we became aware when we read in the program that the movie was produced by Benson Moorhead. And from reading the premise to the movie, it very much sounded like, yeah, that if you had told me Benson Moorhead made this movie, I also would have believed you. The story is it's again a mockumentary on found footage, basically. So it merges the mockumentary with the found footage genre. About this small town in Texas where weird things happen. A guy who lives there finds tapes or finds a tape of himself as a young boy when someone shows up in his bedroom. You can't quite see who that person is, but he believes it's the local pastor that showed up in his bedroom. And his sister had moved away, and she comes back to the town, and she more or less makes this documentary about them trying to find out what happened in this town. And they find footage of security cameras and other cameras, and their parents had installed all these cameras. They were like the camera people in town, and they find out that some weird supernatural cosmic horror shit is happening. I really like the movie. As I said, if you've seen Benson Moorhead movies, especially their lower budget movies, like their latest movie, Something in the Dirt, this Man Finds Tape very much fits into that. But I had not expected it to look as well as it did. I thought, okay, this is probably like a found footage thing, very cheap, but they play around with all these different. With picture quality, and because all the movie, all the things that you're presented is either the documentary parts, which are properly filmed on modern cameras, and then you have added to that like the security camera footage and other film camera. So aspect ratios change, picture quality changes a lot, but it's very well made, very well edited. I really like the approach. I like the story, and at some point. So there's another character that shows up that's only called the Stranger, and the Stranger seems to know things. And I don't want to spoil too much, but that character knows what's going on in this town and tries to do something about that. And while watching the movie, I thought to myself, so this movie feels like it's a John Constantine story presented from the perspective of the civilians, of the people that don't know what's going on, and then suddenly the stranger in a black coat shows up and does weird shit and has books with weird runes in them and does rituals and things like that, and then he disappears again. And coming back yesterday after the movie, I went on Blue Sky and found the filmmakers and presented that theory to them and asked them, so am I crazy if I think this is one way that you could view the movie in, that it's a John Constantine story from the perspective of the civilians? And they both liked it. They said it wasn't an idea that they had, and that's not what I assumed. But they can absolutely see that you could view the story that way, and they really love
awesome.
that idea. And so I recommend the movie. As I said, if you like the low budget approach of Benson Moorhead, some cosmic horror, some found footage, some mockumentary, and Man Finds Tape, I think is worth sticking out. I don't know how you can see it.
Yeah, I think I was just looking now. It's kind of doing the similar thing in the U.S. festival round, like making the festival rounds, and like all the reviews and stuff I've seen have been TIFF, Tribeca, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's on my list. Sounds right up my alley.
And that's it for me this week.
Sweet. Okay. All right, let's get into our main topic of the week. As we mentioned at the top of the episode, we're talking about The Frighteners from 1996, supernatural comedy horror film directed by Peter Jackson, co-written by Jackson and Fran Walsh. The film stars Michael J. Fox, Trini Alvarado, Peter Dobson, John Astin, D. Wallace Stone, Jeffrey Combs, Arlie Ermey, Jake Busey. This is the story of Frank Bannister, an architect who develops psychic abilities, allowing him to see, hear, and communicate with ghosts after his wife's murder. He initially uses the new abilities to befriend ghosts, whom he sends to haunt people so that he can charge them handsome fees for, quote, exorcising the ghosts. However, the spirit of a mass murderer appears posing as the Grim Reaper, able to attack the living and the dead, prompting Frank to investigate the supernatural presence. Pretty meaty paragraph of plot breakdown, but also I think pretty great. Like that's a great summation. It is a movie that has a lot going on, especially compared to the other two Peter Jackson horror movies we've talked about in the past couple weeks here. Let's see. Came out, we mentioned that, 96. Did okay. Well, didn't do that great financially. Cost $26 million and made close to 30. Over the years has become, I would say, a cult film for sure, as well as maybe not on the same level as Bad Taste and Brain Dead, but definitely one that if you're a horror fan, if you're a Peter Jackson fan, you're likely aware of. It had been years since I had seen this. I was a big fan of it in high school and watched it and rewatched it a lot back then. I probably have not seen it since then, since maybe college, much like Brain Dead last week. So this was a fun revisit. I will quickly, actually, you know what? I'm not going to. Andi, let's start with you. What did you think of The Frighteners? Had you seen it before? What was your overall take?
I've seen it several times and I always loved it. It's a movie that I keep bringing up when we talk about like horror movies that, I don't know, influenced us or that we liked from our youth. And I hadn't seen it in a while, but as I said, it's not my first rewatch. And I still liked it a lot. This, I think, is a bit of a forgotten Peter Jackson movie because his first movies have more of a cult status, and even if they're more low budget and maybe not as well made as other movies, they have this cult factor. And then there is The Frighteners, and then immediately after that is The Lord of the Rings, and then that's a whole different era in the Peter Jackson filmography. And as you said, The Frighteners wasn't really that successful, and I think people have criticisms of the movie, and as far as I know, production wasn't necessarily easy for the movie. One thing that I found very interesting is something that they talked about on the Screen Drafts podcast, where they said they were trying to make a PG-13 movie, but then they got an R rating. And if they had known that they would make an R-rated movie, they would have made an R-rated movie.
Yeah.
And that's probably what some people don't really quite appreciate about the movie. That it sits in between. It doesn't go far enough for an R-rated movie for some, maybe. As I said, I really like the movie. I still like it. I think it's a lot of fun. The Danny Elfman score makes you feel like you're in a Tim Burton movie immediately. It opens up and you think you're watching Beetlejuice. The camera work and in combination with the Danny Elfman score. It's a Robert Zemeckis production, who initially was supposed to make the movie, and then for some reason they got Peter Jackson to make it. It is I think it doesn't really quite fit your usual studio horror movies. So it is this movie made with a higher budget than many horror movies, but not. I don't know. It feels so weird for a studio movie. Maybe that's why it didn't find a broader audience. But that's kind of what I like about it. That you see the production value in the movie, but then it also is very different than many movies on that budget level. You have Michael J. Fox in the lead role. That's surprising for one.
Yeah,
something that you wouldn't necessarily would have expected at the time, to see Michael J. Fox in this horror movie. I think this is probably like the literal translation of a roller coaster into a movie. You often that's an image that is often used for movies, that they are a roller coaster. But I think that, to me personally, few movies feel as much as a roller coaster as this movie does. It never lets up. When it gets going, it gets going. It is very quick to get into things, and then it's just straight on till the end. There's no lull. It doesn't pause at any point. It just takes you on a ride, and when it's done, it's done. And I whenever I watch it, I really have a good time with it. Who's next?
Let's throw it to Dave.
Okay. Yeah, I enjoyed the film a lot. I thought it was interesting that this was probably the moment where Peter Jackson fell in love with shitty CG graphics. You can definitely trace a line between this and the first Lord of the Rings film.
I was going to say that's actually, I thought Andi was going to mention that before, so let me quickly throw that in there. That was one thing about the production that is notable, is that this was Weta, as with a lot of the other stuff, Weta Digital. But they had only been around for like 3 years, and then they also had pretty much only had a lot, like, their experience with practical effects. And from what Wikipedia says, at the time, this was like one of the movies with maybe the most, if not the most, digital effects needed ever. So it not only was a different thing from what they were used to, but a lot of it, because the movie is full of digital effects.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely kept the budget down. So thing is, like, I say that, but I'm kind of kidding when I say it, because I don't think it looks as bad as some films that I've seen from around the same time. Certainly the fact that it's a 3-year-old company that's doing it, I think that they've done an okay job. But I have my problems with the CG in the Fellowship of the Ring, especially the Balrog scene. I think that is one of the most egregiously ignored, unfinished special effects that a company has ever put out on celluloid, honestly. Having said that, you know that this film is made around a certain budget, and you make allowances for those things. I think there's a lot of effects that were reasonably well done, actually. Like I think that Gary Busey, is it Gary? I fucking hell, I get him. Jake. Yeah, it's not Gary Busey. They look so similar that it's so easy to get them mixed up.
Yeah,
yeah. No, I'm aware.
I wasn't sure if you knew.
Yeah, no, I know. The teeth are a dead giveaway. It's like the scene where his face is sliding down some concrete, like
tombstone.
It's not the best CG, but it does the job it's meant to do. On the flip side, I feel like the ghost effects are really well done, and although that is probably, could that be a digital effect as well, or have they done that in a more old school kind of Ghostbusters way? I'm not 100% sure.
From what I read, it was digital. They had to shoot everything basically twice.
They would do
on a green screen, and then they would match so the actors, like Michael J. Fox, is acting to nothing with any of the ghosts.
So I think where they've used digital effects, where they've not had to create the entire asset from scratch, they do a really good job, actually. I think the main problem for them is 3D models. And even then, like, the ghosts in the walls, I think look pretty decent. I promise I'll get off this subject in a second. I'm supposed to be giving overall thoughts. And actually, like, one of the effects that I really enjoyed was kind of a callback to an Orson Welles thing. There's a scene in one of Wells's movie where the camera in one shot moves through a pane of glass into an interior shot. And you get that same thing at the very beginning of this film where the camera starts kind of looking overhead at a thunderstorm, and then it kind of pans down and then zooms down and into the open window, where it's not an open window, that's the point, through the window pane. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so is that a composite shot? Did they splice two shots together? Like, is the glass CG? I'm not sure. And the fact that I was asking myself that many questions, I think, says that was a really well executed shot. And then they kind of go through the hole in the floor and out the ceiling, and then you're into the house proper, and the haunting of the sanatorium begins. Overall, did very much enjoy it. I thought Michael J. Fox was pretty good in the role, actually. Like, it's not... I don't think I've seen much Michael J. Fox outside of Back to the Future and Teen Wolf, honestly. I know there's that one movie where he's like a doctor in a small town, name of which I can't remember. I literally only remember that movie was a thing because I saw the advert.
Wikipedia's telling me it's Doc Hollywood?
Yeah, Doc Hollywood, that's the one. That's the one.
Okay.
I remember seeing the trailer for it when I was watching another movie at the cinema when I was a young kid, and it just kind of stuck in my head that, oh, look, it's the Back to the Future guy.
Movie they ripped off for Cars.
Oh, yeah, probably. Because I'm
aware
what
the
the
same
plot
story
is.
as Doc Hollywood.
Yeah.
Isn't one of the cars named that, too?
No, I've never seen Cars.
I've only seen it once, and I hated it.
The
It's one of my least favorite Pixar
1950s
movies.
racing car that Lightning McQueen learns from, I think, might be called Doc. I could be wrong.
Anyway, it's okay.
Anyway, yeah,
I'll look this up on my own time.
That's a strange aside.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was nice to see him in a role where he wasn't just playing kind of like the goody two-shoes good guy. Like, he had a little bit of edge to him. Starts off as a little bit of a shyster. The reveal of the ghosts I thought was pretty fun. Especially enjoyed the judge. Did not realise until looking up the credits that is John Astin, who played Gomez in the original Addams Family TV show. So that was a pleasant surprise for me. But yeah, in general, I thought it was a pretty well put together film. It had the sense of humour that I would expect from, slightly watered down maybe, but still the sense of humour was there for a Jackson movie. The telltale sign it's a Jackson movie, much in the same way as if you're watching a movie by forgetting names again. That's embarrassing. Director of The Walking Dead, Sam Raimi. Yeah, you knew where I was going with this, Andy.
Not direct The Walking Dead, so Evil Dead.
Why did I say Walking Dead?
I don't know.
My brain does not work. So yeah, Sam Raimi's got this thing where he likes to have his car in every movie that he directs. And that is something that is kind of replicated in Jackson's work. The car that was in Bad Taste, not the one that had the Beatles in the front of it, the one that the shyster in Bad Taste was driving. I think it's a Morris. I could be wrong. He likes to have that model of car in every movie where possible. And so Michael J. Fox's car in this movie is the same model as the car from Bad Taste. So that was a nice little thing. And of course, knowing that Jackson now appears in all of his movies, I kept an eye out for it. And it was a fairly obvious cameo once you know what you're looking for. Just bumps into the main character halfway through the movie. He's put on a few pounds in the 10 years between his appearance in Bad Taste and this one. But you see the beard and you immediately know exactly who that is that it is, even though they're very quick to move the camera down. But my MVP of the entire movie has to be Jeffrey Combs. And we've talked about this guy before. This guy is a fucking Swiss Army knife of an actor.
Glad you brought him up.
He can play any fucking role, and he'll do it to the best of his ability. He's a scene stealer. Genuinely, like, I kind of had to work hard to think, hang on, is that Jeffrey Combs? Because the physical transformation that he goes through from role to role is just like, it's pretty startling. Like, you put a little facial scar and a weird haircut on the guy, and suddenly he's just the character. He's not him anymore. So yeah, really, really enjoyed him. And like, genuinely, you could just cast Jeffrey Combs reading the phone book, and I'd probably enjoy it quite a lot. So yeah, overall, really enjoyed it. I can see why it possibly had issues with what you guys were already saying about like the whole PG-13 rated R thing. The irony being, if this was made today, this would be a PG-13 all day. Like, there's nothing in there that's that bad. I guess someone getting their head blown off of a shotgun.
Yeah, I was going to say, I could think of a couple shots that wouldn't make the cut, but
maybe,
yeah, other than that.
But like, here's the weird thing: like, it wasn't played up as like brutally bloody. Like, maybe finding the mother in the bed covered in blood, yeah, that's fine. But he gets his head shot off, but it's kind of like, there's no blood spurting from what I remember. It's literally just a bloody stump with his ghost head on top of it.
I mean, you do see his head explode.
You do.
But you're right in that the focus of the shot is his ghost head is still there, which is a great gag.
It is
a nice
great gag.
Little reminded me of one of the many moments that was a little bit of brain dead in there, where you can see the even though this is a glossier Hollywood movie, you can see the Peter Jackson stuff in there for sure.
For sure, yeah. So yeah, very much enjoyed it.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, we're 3 for 3. I would say not only held up, but I maybe liked it even more, with some decades in between having watched it the last time and now. Yeah, I think it's great. I don't know. The CG thing is usually the thing that people bring up. I totally understand why. There are definitely shots in the movie where you're like, oh, it looks, that I remember when CG was like this, like in the 90s when it was, easy enough for them to put in movies, but not experienced enough that things necessarily always looked absolutely the best. That being said, I will say that I think like 95% of the CG in this movie is pretty good, like for the time. Like, I think it is fine. Like, there's nothing in it that pulls me out in a way where, even when it is kind of shoddy, I honestly think that it's because of who made it and how they utilized it. I mean, you go back and look at CG from the 90s, and like, you can point to stuff like Jurassic Park and say like, this is one of the best things we've ever, like, it still looks amazing, and it's 30 plus years. Like, there was a thing that they were able to nail here. But then there's also stuff like this, or filmmakers. I mean, even I think I'm trying to remember if are there any weird CG shots in Army of Darkness? I'm trying to think of other horror filmmakers at the time. But using it in a way where, even though it's the same tools, the people behind them are a bit different in terms of their vision and their execution. So I say all that to say, there are also CG shots in this that, even though they look dated, I kind of think they look awesome. Like, I actually really like the Grim Reaper design and character in this. Like, I think he looks super cool. It does look old. Like, I'm not gonna just be like, this is some of the best CG I've ever seen. It's not that. It's more the movement of him, the design of him. It's also interesting because when you look at him, you're like, oh, it's the Nazgul. Like, there's a clear sort of through line that you can draw with some of the things that they were doing to what he did in Lord of the Rings. Anyway, I think part of it's the scythe. I think part of it is the way that it moves and the fact that it's just a cloak with no face. Like, it's one of those things where it's like the execution is not amazing necessarily all the time, but the approach and the way of doing it, I was really into all that. I dug that a lot. I don't know if that's also just growing up, I really liked a bad horror movie called Darkness Calls. It's a pretty bad horror movie, but I loved it when I was younger. And the villain in that is like, it's the Tooth Fairy. It's a stupid fucking movie, but it has a similar sort of like rags over a ghost kind of like design, which I think looks cool. And especially, like Andi said, roller coaster, great metaphor for how this movie works and moves. I saw some of the stuff that people, specifically Ebert, criticizing the script and everything. I really like the script. I think that the movie kind of doesn't work maybe necessarily all that great if that stuff isn't as solid. I think that's one of the biggest strengths that the movie has. It's not like Brain Dead, where you are expecting very little in terms of plot and characterization, but you're expecting and hoping for, and it's being delivered, tons of gags and gore and different prosthetics and stuff like that. It's not that kind of movie. So they have to have, I don't want to say they have to, they definitely lean into the characterization, the story. I mean, we have a like straight up, it's a supernatural horror comedy, yes, but it is also a serial killer, like Natural Born Killers, what is his name? Charles Starkweather, like Bonnie and Clyde kind of, one living, one dead, like ghost human serial killer type deal too. So there's all this stuff happening. Having Michael J. Fox play, I think, against type, I think it works really well. Like, you don't necessarily see him in his what is clearly his prime asshole years when he has long hair, but you definitely can tell he's not Marty McFly. Like, he's not a guy trying to do right and like a sweet innocent dude. He's a guy who was probably a piece of shit and lost his wife and is now kind of navigating this world as best he can, but also maybe still has a little bit of a shithead in him in terms of how he's handling things. So having all of that at play with who he was as an actor, especially at the time. It's also a bittersweet movie too. I mean, this was like one of the last times I can think that Mars Attacks, he was in Mars Attacks around the same time, where it was before, like, the Parkinson's stuff had been diagnosed, but he was hiding it. So there was definitely a shift where we had Michael J. Fox in movies, and he was a big voice in my youth because he voiced one of the dogs in Homeward Bound. So I heard his voice all the time, even before I saw Back to the Future. He then went into voice acting. He was Stuart Little, did a bunch of stuff in there in the middle when he wasn't on camera anymore. And then when he came back in front of the camera, that was when he was definitely, he had been very vocal and very public about the Parkinson's stuff and was playing characters that had Parkinson's, or not hiding that this was something that he had. There was a very like cool, famous testimony he did where he intentionally didn't take his medication so that he could show people, like, this is what it's like. This is what I'm like when I don't have access to medication. So anyway, it's a cool / bittersweet thing seeing him like at this age, because I think he was such a great actor. Like, he still is now. Like, it's not like that changed him, but Parkinson's just some heavy shit. So anyway, yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I think that it reminds me in some ways of, you mentioned Jeffrey Combs. So Milton Dammers, this FBI agent that's in the movie, it makes me think of how I feel about Detective Loki in the film Prisoners by Denis Villeneuve, which is a not horror comedy, very serious movie, but a movie where I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, this dude is clearly from another movie, is the starring character in another like something, like some kind of script that didn't get used, and they put him in this because he's such a like over the top, larger than life. And Detective Loki's not like that. It's a more subdued comparison, but similar thing where Jake Gyllenhaal's character in that movie, there's so much about him that I'm like, what are all these tattoos? What is the stuff he's talking? Like, they don't give it to you. Jeffrey Combs does. So you get just a full like season worth of lore on Milton Dammers, this guy who used to be undercover FBI and satanic cults, who has been just destroyed mentally. It's such a funny, weird, unique character that, like, I could see if you're not into him, like, as a character, as a performance, I could see people being like, why is this guy in the movie? Because it's not something that the film, like, needs, this particular role. But like you said, Dave, like, Jeffrey Combs just eating the shit out of just chewing up every single piece of scenery he can. The dude's got scars, tattoos, like a giant it's like a leather vest. Is it leather? Or
it was iron. No, it was
iron.
Lead.
Like if a woman starts screaming at him, he starts losing his mind because of the trauma of his past. Like just this completely crazy, unhinged, just off the wall FBI agent. It for me, it adds more to the movie. It makes it even more fun.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Fast. And
I don't know if this is maybe just a really left field pitch, but I kind of like the idea that he might have at one point been like a co-worker I'm really bad at names, guys. Basically, I feel like he's in the same FBI department as the Twin Peaks universe. It's just like...
yeah, a guy that couldn't handle it.
yeah. Like, David Lynch is his boss, so, like, you've got the whole hearing aid thing going on, and then, like, he's like, please don't shout, it unnerves me, and...
Yeah, this is the guy that in like True Detective season 4, you find out that he used to be Matthew McConaughey's partner and had a psychotic break and had to leave the So it's a crazy movie. It's like you guys have already mentioned. I mean, it's super fast paced. It's I don't think the R-rated stuff, like when I was younger, that probably would have bothered me more, where it was like, oh, well, you know, they got screwed because if they were trying to make it, like, it would have been so much better, it would have been so much gorier, all this kind of stuff. This is a movie, a tone, an execution, everything for me where I'm like, this feels right to me. Like, it doesn't, like, the moments where it does get a little bit gorier doesn't feel out of place, but it also isn't a movie where a guy is going to kill 40 people with a lawnmower. So, I mean, there's not, I'm not waiting for that shit. Honestly, more than anything, the one thing that I remembered the most was the head exploding at the end. I think because it is more gory than the rest of it, but the other, even that, like we talked about earlier, when you see it, the gag is more about his ghost head still being there.
Because a lot of the rest of it, like the flashbacks to the sanatorium back in the 50s or the 60s, and you know, a lot of those deaths kind of, they're insinuated, or you don't actually see someone getting blown away with a shotgun. You might hear it happening,
if you do, you see a body flying. It's not.
Yeah, like you it's like you were saying the other week, like you know, body gets cut in half, but you just see the legs fall in opposite directions. You don't actually see the body being cleaved in twain.
And even the ghosts and like a lot of the violence in this, when it's against ghosts, it's very Looney Tunes-ish. It's
very comedic,
slapsticky.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a Wild West character who's walking around with literally just a spine connecting his upper and lower torso. I mean, technically that's all of us, but sure. I mean, it's like exposed to the world.
Usually there's more support.
Yeah. Like he took 90s girls fashion and just took it to a whole new extreme. There's a couple of things that didn't bother me at the time, because in the timeline of watching the movie, why would it? But thinking back on the thing as a whole, so, the beginning of the movie, we start with Patricia being attacked by a ghost and chased around the house by a ghost. And I feel like that's literally only there to wrong foot us as the viewer of the movie, because the murders have been taking place like for 6 years or something at that point. I read on Wikipedia that and maybe it was mentioned in the film, but the first accident where Michael J. Fox's character, where Frank loses his wife, was in 1990. And that leads to another thing that I kind of lost me a little bit as well. But so that was 1990. So he'd already returned to the world of the living in 1990 because that's the first killing to keep on the killing spree, number 13. So did it just take him 6 years to come back to the sanatorium? Because he's apparently killed 20 other people in that time, and I'm supposed to believe that the first thing he did to win back the love of his life was to chase around the house and attack her.
I think it is because I think she helped bring him back, so she would have known. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it is a little bit of misdirect for the audience to not connect those two plot lines. But then I think it's also Dee Wallace Stone, I guess is her full name. Yeah. It's her like intentionally trying to mess with her mom too, I think. Because the mom's not in on it, and the mom is, but yeah, I mean, it is. I think it's more misdirect than it is.
Feels that way, yeah. And then the other problem that I had, which was the actual like death of Frank's wife. As far as I'm aware, none of the other victims after 13, had the number physically carved into their foreheads, but she did, and. I mean,
no, the ones in the hospital did.
The ones in the hospital did, but he was still alive when that shit happened. Like that him and Patricia were going around carving the numbers into their heads, like 1 to 12.
We see numbers on more recent deaths.
Do we? Okay.
Yeah, the husband, that sports guy. But that's something that Bianca also pointed out. That
it's not physically carved into his head after, like post-mortem, like the wife was.
I mean, we see it on the ghost, but I think we see it on the ghost because it's on the corpse. That's my assumption. Because that's something that Bianca pointed out when she said all these bodies have these numbers carved into their foreheads and no one's making a connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just...
What's with the numbers? I don't know. It's fine.
It just felt a little bit bitty because we see like 2 or 3 people die in front of our eyes and none of them get a number carved on their heads. They just come out of the bodies and disappear into the tunnel of light, like the guy in the bathroom.
And there's also a couple times where he sees numbers before they're there.
Yeah, which I like as a plot device because it's him having the power no one else does to be able to see who the next victim is, because then that kind of clues us into the fact that what's her name? Lucy is in trouble, and she's going to be the next one. So as a plot device, that makes perfect sense.
I'm saying to your point though, like it's even that isn't necessarily consistent because that happens sometimes. And
I was just kind of like, okay, they make this big thing about this number being carved into her head, but then like there are other victims that we see dying, and it doesn't happen to them. So what? I get it. It's breadcrumbs for us to kind of like put things together and figure out that, oh wait, hang on, he killed 12 people. He made a big thing about I'm on 12. That makes me public enemy number 1. Like we should see the 13 and immediately kind of like think, oh, hang on, that makes sense. But I don't know. It just felt slightly clunky and maybe just like a little bit of a rejig, or just taking the time to like have like a CG number carved into the toilet death's head from nowhere. Like Frank falls over and runs away, and then you pan back to the body and the number starts being carved into the head. I don't know, like
I think it's probably well, and I'm not necessarily even defending it when I say this, but I think it is one of those things where it's the roller coaster aspect of the movie of like,
for sure.
You're not slowing down to. It's not a mystery in the sense that like they're wanting you to try to piece together and figure it out. Like it's moving too fast for you to. So I would imagine there would have been a lot of fast and loose shit when it came to the supernatural stuff because that would be a place where they could more easily. But yeah, I know what you mean. There were times in it where it was the same, where I kind of looked where it's like, it feels like a little bit of hand waving over here so you're paying attention at this and not that kind of thing, so that we can then jump back over here. But yeah, I mean, I think I think that aspect of it all works. I mean, there's different things here and there throughout it that I don't necessarily love. There's some stuff that doesn't age particularly well here and there, but for the most part, I think the concepts are still pretty strong. Like I like the idea that we have Jake Busey's character is just this like complete maniacal, like trying to like outscore serial killers in the afterlife. Like it's there's really no complexity or nuance or depth to him. He's just a evil maniac serial killer trying to be the coolest or like the best serial killer even in the afterlife kind of thing. There's not like a bigger, because that's one thing I couldn't remember. I was like, is there a what's that movie we watched recently that we loved with the Chinese ghosts or Taiwanese?
Yeah, Dead Talent Society.
Dead Talent Society. I couldn't remember going into it. I was like, is there an element of this where there's like an afterlife kind of? And there's not. There's like, that's one aspect I really liked about the movie and about this plot, is that there's clearly a system, which is shockingly similar to This Is the End, which is that you die or are pulled back, and this like shaft of light comes from the sky if you're going to go to heaven, and it pulls you up, and that's it. But then there are ghosts who are refusing to do that and are getting stuck, or like there are these sorts of rules and everything else that Michael J. Fox has sort of figured out, but it's not a giant like culture around it necessarily. It reminded me at times of Cemetery Man. It reminded me at times of shit, I just blanked on the movie. But like those sort of like afterlife depictions of afterlife where it's not necessarily lore heavy, but we have people that like the what's the thing they always say on Halloween, like the division between the afterlife and whatever is thin, so these people are able to kind of interact, and that plays out by the end of the movie too with the girlfriend, and she's able to see ghosts by the end because of what she went through. And so yeah, I really like all of that. It's the look of it, the kind of like old school translucent like ghosts with blue strokes around their around their outlines, and like it's all very I don't know, there's an element of whimsy to it in a way without it being the Danny Elfman score probably helps with that. Like
I love that score. Yeah,
I like the score too. I'm definitely not someone who shits on Danny Elfman, and you know, we hear the same jokes about Danny Elfman all the time, that it's, you know, like the same chord progressions and the same types of you know, I like Danny Elfman. This was one where I was like, this does kind of sound like what people are joking about when they say Danny Elfman stuff always sounds the same.
Yeah, but I think, sorry to interrupt you, I feel like you can actually say that about a lot of the big name the big name musical artists, composers. You see, my brain really is not working today. I couldn't remember the word composer, for fuck's sake. Like Elfman definitely has that sound, which is mostly associated with like I guess like the best known thing would be Batman,
like
right?
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, like Batman, Edward Scissorhands. Like he's very into kind of like choral and like, you know, those particular chord progressions. But then like you talk about someone like Bear McCreary, or even like, you know, the guy that did the Going for Gold song, Hans Zimmerman. That's my favorite. That is my favorite bit of trivia about Hans Zimmerman, that he is actually the man who wrote Going for Gold, which is probably not something that you would be aware of, David. But
I also
Andy
don't know for sure if this is a different person than Hans Zimmer.
Sorry, Hans Zimmer. Yeah, not Zimmerman.
Okay.
I don't know.
Like, is this a British?
Yeah, I don't know
composer?
I don't know where the man came from. It's Hans Zimmer.
Got it. Yeah, so, I was going to say Hans Zimmer gets a similar sort of thing sometimes, where people will say like, oh, it's a Hans Zimmer thing because there's a droning, repetitive kind of hum.
You get the composer because you want that sound. You know, you don't, if you want a sports car, you don't buy a Ford Capri, you buy a Porsche Boxster. You know, right. you if you want a good meal, you don't go to McDonald's. It's the same thing. You know, I don't know where you would go for a good meal these days, because the enshittification of restaurants is everywhere. But, you know, off of my political hobby horse for the day, you know, the point is like, you don't get Danny Elfman and then ask him to write a Hans Zimmer score.
Sure. No, I think it definitely fits the movie. I think I even like the score. It's not even necessarily a criticism of the score itself. More that it, like, I would say as a fan of Elfman, even acknowledging the criticisms people make of his stuff sometimes, I can pick out and tell you the different melodies for some of his most famous movies, like his compositions and stuff like that. There's not necessarily anything like that in this for me. It just kind of sounds like he was like, all right, fucking Hans Zimmer. All right, Danny Elfman time. Let's Elfman it up, baby. Like it's I got my bag of tricks. I know how to do it.
Elfman.
Yeah. But it's not bad. And I think the tone absolutely more than any other film we've talked of his or seen of his that at least that I've seen of his, this is the Danny Elfman score movie. Like this is the one that has the you're absolutely right. Between the content and the tone, it is that kind of like, and in fact, I'll save it for my special feature pick, but there is an element, or special feature, double feature. There is an element of this movie too that I think is like not childlike. Probably we're the same place I'm coming from with using the word whimsy earlier, but it's almost like a kid's movie made for adults in some ways, and I don't mean that dismissively or pejoratively by any means, but like we've seen lots of movies like this that are for kids. That are, if you take out the serial killer stuff and if you take out like some of the more, hardcore violent elements of it when they do happen, there's not a ton of them. This guy who can talk to ghosts, who has a girlfriend, and he's on a date with the girl and her dead ex-husband is sitting there, and he's got these like two wacky pals that are ghosts that help him set up. Like there's all these things that it's like the setup for a 90s Goosebumps, TV show or style show or something like that. And it is I think Danny Elfman is like the perfect kind of thing, because it wasn't until, Tim Burton had been around at this point, but like Tim Burton kind of cornered the market on that, PG-13, later to be described as like Hot Topic, sort of like goth, in between PG-13 and R, or maybe just straight up PG-13. So it is a weird tonal thing in this movie, but I think it works. I mean, it's really fun. There's no other way to describe the movie for me. Like it's one of those where even though I've seen better films and I've probably even seen other films do some of these same ideas better, it's just so much fun to watch because Jackson doing a maybe lesser entry in his filmography, a lot of people would consider, I would say at least, it's still significantly better than a lot of people's best movie. I think, like in terms of like what they're at least if it's just the like kernel of or like the source at the middle of it of his specific way of looking at creativity, his specific way of looking at execution, stuff like that. So anyway, it's kind of pretentious, but that's how I view it. It's just it's a really fun, cool Peter Jackson movie that, I mean, if you've made 6 Middle-earth movies and King Kong remake and some of the biggest, most formative splatter kind of cult horror classic influential movies, like making the movie like The Frighteners in another career would be a highlight probably in some ways, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, he's surrounded by much bigger things. So it's this film in particular, I can see why it's gotten left behind a little bit, but it's fun. I think it's really fun. I feel like we're done now. Any other thoughts?
I think so too. The only other thing that I wanted to add, because David, some time ago, you said that some people might think that the movie doesn't really need Jeffrey Combs' character, but we need Jeffrey Combs' character.
Oh yeah.
Because to me, this and Love in a 45. Two movies that I saw in the 90s, probably pretty close together, with two totally unhinged Jeffrey Combs performances. Yeah. So I wouldn't book these two movies as a double feature, but the performances by Jeffrey Combs, that's my Jeffrey Combs double feature, Love in a 45 and The Frighteners.
Absolutely. Yeah, weirdly enough, last week after I finished watching Brain Dead, I was like, man, I haven't watched Reanimator in a while. I want to rewatch that. And part of it was it reminded me of was the decapitated head and the different monsters and creatures. You guys have both seen Reanimator, right? Did we do it on the show?
Yeah, it was Frankenstein with glow sticks.
That's right. I forgot about
I was not on that episode, so for me it's been decades since I saw
it. But yeah, I even got the Blu-ray out of my room, put the disc in, and ended up later in the week taking the disc out because I had to swap it out for the Frighteners and had forgotten I put it in there. And then it wasn't until I was watching the Frighteners that I was like, oh shit, I almost did an accidental Jeffrey Combs through line connection here with arguably his biggest role. Okay.
Go ahead,
Dave.
I did find some information. Admittedly, I've been lazy and just gone down the Wikipedia article, but there is some more information as regards the underperformance of the film at the box office. Now, this is mainly what people believe to be the case rather than anything with empirical proof, but
Sure.
It did open at number 5 in the box office on opening weekend with $5.5 million. It was, however, released around the same time as Independence Day. Which
tough movie to be.
It's a very tough movie. Also, opening day of the movie was also timed to be on the same day as the opening day of the Atlanta Olympics.
Ooh.
And there's a wonderful story where Jackson apparently realised it, told the studio, and they answered with, "We don't think so. Our research indicates that's not the case." And
that
I
it's
just
not
thought,
the same day.
Yeah, and he responds by saying, "I just thought, how the hell do they know?" There had only been 3 Olympic Games held in the United States in 100 years. How we don't think it is on the same day as the Atlanta Summer Olympics. I mean, I guess Google wasn't a thing back then, so you couldn't easily check. But come on, it's not fucking rocket science to just be like, maybe we should check that.
Yeah, shit that they also, I think historically, I could be wrong on this, but like plan out years ahead of time. It's not like they announce whoever's having the Olympics the week before.
Yeah, like they'll announce from previous times, because I remember they announced the London Olympics as part of like a 2 or 3 games announcement.
Yeah,
and I think we had
usually decades ahead.
We had 8 to 10 years of warning before the Olympics came. So yeah, because you have to have time to build the infrastructure and whatnot. But yeah, that's just kind of mad.
This is going to be another Ann Perry thing where I look it up later and it's like, after Peter Jackson pointed this out, the Olympic Committee changed it to... They used to announce it the weekend prior until the release of the Frighteners.
And the other thing being that the marketing campaign for it, Jackson basically said, look, this poster tells you nothing about the movie.
Dude, it is a weird thing. I've mentioned this on the podcast.
He's right.
It is a cool poster. I've mentioned this on the podcast though. Like I did the patron level of Letterboxd at some point, and so I'm just really excited every time I log a movie because there's all the alternate posters I can choose from and assign to that movie in my profile. And the Frighteners is a bunch of variations of the same poster.
Yep.
There's really nothing, even like fan stuff. It's all pretty shitty and low res. But like, yeah, there wasn't, usually even on older movies, you'll have some variety of like, oh, they released a couple of different one sheets back then or whatever, and somebody scanned it in. But yeah, this is the only, my Blu-ray has a cover that like, I think it's like the 15th anniversary edition or something. Clearly somebody at the studio just photoshopped some bullshit together for the front. It's like Michael J. Fox and some ghosts behind him. It's not an actual poster.
They were in a rush because last bit of information, and then I'll allow the show to stop being derailed. So they were running behind on the effects, and they ended up securing another $6 million in financing to finish the effects. But in order to get that, they also had to accept a accelerated release date 4 months ahead of the scheduled release.
Just the thing you want when there's too much CGI and not enough time.
I know, right? Yeah, like that makes perfect fucking sense.
4
More money,
months.
less time. Because we've looked at the triangle, and we know for a fact that if you've got no time but you've got lots of money and lots of people, you'll be fine. It's like, no, that doesn't always work.
That's ridiculous. Okay, let's do some double feature picks. Andi, kick us off. What you got this week?
So I'll mention 2 movies. One that only makes sense to me, and I don't really would.
My favorite
with
type.
this one, and one that would make actual sense, I believe. So there's another movie that, when I think of the Frighteners, almost immediately comes up in my mind because of the song that it ends on. So the Frighteners ends on "Don't Fear the Reaper." It's a cover version, which I was probably not aware of at the time when I first saw the movie. It was just Don't Fear the Reaper. I love that song. It's a perfect song, and it's often used in movies. We talked about movies and songs in horror movies recently. Re-listening to the version that is in the Frighteners, I obviously noticed that it's tragically lacking cowbell. So it cannot be the original version.
The riff is also slightly different, which is just different enough that it annoys me. That I'm like, you left out one note in the riff. Anyway.
And the other song that I, in my mind, always pair, because of its use in movies and in horror movies, that I always pair with Don't Fear the Reaper, is the Rolling Stones' Painted Black. And The Devil's Advocate ends on Painted Black. So
nice.
These are the two endings of those movies. When you hear these first few notes of the song, I distinctly remember watching those movies for the first time and lighting up at the end of those movies just because of those notes of those respective songs. But that's the movie that I would actually pair with the Frighteners, because I think thematically it makes sense about a guy who sees dead people and weird creatures, and a movie that is fun but also dark at times. And was divisively discussed on this podcast is Odd Thomas.
That's a good pick. I see that one for sure. Yeah. Nice. Dave, what you got?
Well, first I'll point out that the cover version of Don't Fear the Reaper definitely needed more cowbell, as a wise man once said on a comedy program.
You also missed Andi making the exact same joke.
God fucking damn it. I step away for 2 seconds.
Phrased it a little bit differently. But I did the research, and because I wanted to know when did SNL do that skit, and that was in the year 2000, so way later.
So they'd obviously watched this movie and decided...
Yeah, they were probably influenced by this one, yeah.
I'll edit this to make me look like less of an idiot. Or maybe I won't. Seriously, though, you step away for 2 seconds and you miss the most important fucking line. I'm going to pick a TV series, and it's a series that I have brought up on the show before, so no surprise he's going back to the well. But specifically, series 1 of this show, Round the Twist, the Australian TV show, kind of like it's a catch-all weird stories TV show, which is based on a couple of books by Paul Jennings. He released a book called Unreal and another one called Unbelievable. It's a collection of short stories. And Round the Twist was essentially just an attempt to adapt these short stories and have a kind of through line that would make all of the stories make sense happening on the same show. I would say the main reason that I'm picking season 1 is because there's several episodes that focus on ghosts, and the ghosts are almost all presented in exactly the same way as they are in this movie. They're kind of like blue, kind of luminescent people. The first episode is called Skeleton on the Dunny, which, for anyone that isn't aware, a dunny is Australian slang for toilet. So there's a ghost in that one. And then the one that I always remember is the third episode, called A Good Tip for Ghosts. And it concerns a ghost by the nickname of Old Man Chompers, who he walks a dump searching for his lost false teeth, and the kids randomly find these false teeth one day and eventually return them to him. And but Round the Twist is just a really fun, kid-friendly kind of 13 episodes a season, kind of like fun sci-fi paranormal comedy show. Very, very comfortable letting kids watch it of all ages. They used to show it on kids' TV in the UK back in the early 90s. It was part of like the Saturday morning block for kids, and a little bit on the disgusting side. Like one episode was concerned with birds just shitting all over people. So it was basically the birds, but probably more disturbing. But yeah, it's a really fun show, but it does have a really interesting kind of interpretation and a familiar interpretation of what ghosts might look like. So yeah, there we go.
Nice. Yeah, I'm in a similar place in terms of the approach, but I mentioned earlier that the kids thing. I think part of the reason that was in my head is just months before The Frighteners came out, a film that I loved as a kid and I watched all the time. I would rent the tape from Blockbuster and rewatch it over and over again. Was a little movie called Casper from 1995, and as I was watching this, I was like, man, there's so much in common with Casper in terms of, I think part of it is the era for sure. Like it's, less than a year apart. But the set design, the houses, the way that the architecture and stuff looks, the designs of the ghosts. Casper has more of a like designed type of thing where like when people do die and become ghosts, they're kind of like more, it's less so a prosthetic thing and more a designed kind of like, oh, here's a ghost version of that character, but they do a similar thing in the movie. And yeah, like tonally it just kind of reminded me of it, or at least my memory of what Casper was like, growing up watching it, where it was a little bit scary, but also, fun, funny, goofy. Like there's elements of actual danger and like real life and death stuff happening. But the tone and everything about it is keeps it light and bouncy and fun. So yeah, that's legitimately a kid's movie. So like you could, if you double featured it, it would be more of a situation of like, hey, millennials, here's a movie you liked as a kid, and here's one you'll like as an adult.
Or watch one movie and then send the kids to bed for the second one.
Right. But honestly, I almost had Daniel watch The Frighteners with me because my memory of it was what it is, which is this kind of, and as I was watching it, I was like, he wouldn't be into this. I think probably it's too plot heavy and the serial killer stuff, like he would get lost. But the visuals of the just the vibe and the ghosts and the slapsticky Looney Tunes stuff, like I think all that stuff still would play to an almost 9-year-old. It's just as well as it did for me. So yeah, I'll choose Casper. Next week, we're not sure what we're doing yet. We, as Andi mentioned, we're going to do a Toxic Avenger Screamake episode at some point, talking about the original Toxic Avenger and the remake. Between seeing the film, between schedules, between everything else, we got to sort out when we're going to do that episode, but it's in the works. Might be next week, might not be. And then I also had an idea for an episode as we were recording this one, which I will mention to these guys after we're done recording here. So keep an eye out on our social media. We'll announce there whatever we're doing next. Let us know what you thought about The Frighteners and Peter Jackson's horror filmography, Peter Jackson's filmography in general. If you want to send us some longer form thoughts, again, the best place to do that is eerieinternational@gmail.com. In the meantime, though, stay safe out there. Keep watching horror movies, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Good boo.